You're listening to Behind the Mic with Micah Popp. Hey everybody, welcome to Behind the Mic with Micah Popp. I'm Micah Popp, and this is episode 10. Thank you guys so much for listening today. So, I have a important subject I want to talk about today, and you might have heard of it. It's the principle of sowing and reaping, of giving and receiving, tithes and offering. Now, I know you might be thinking that this is a subject that nobody likes to talk about. This is a subject that is kind of touchy. It's a touchy subject. Nobody likes to talk about giving their money away, their hard-earned cash that they've worked tirelessly for. Nobody likes to think about giving it away for free. And I want to preface too, I'm not asking anybody for money today. This is not what this is about. This is a podcast that is not, I'm not asking for that today. But I know that a lot of people, when they go to church, I know that pastors ask for tithes and stuff, and I know it's really one of those things that people like. They think pastors are money grubbers. They don't like to hear about it. But I wanted to bring some word on about what it really means to have tithes and offerings and why it's important. So first off, I want to read some scriptures. I have got 3 scriptures today. I'm going to read all 3 of them first. And the first one comes in Galatians 6:7 in the New King James Version. Do not be deceived. God is not mocked. For whatever a man sows, that he will also reap. So that's a good one that just kind of talks about, how whatever we sow, we reap. And that is the basic principle of sowing and reaping, is that, you have the tithe and you plant it as a seed, and then it brings forth a harvest. And for those of you who don't know what a tithe is, maybe I should back up and explain that a little bit. The tithe is the first fruits, the 10% of your income that you give back to the Lord. And it's 10% because instead of having a standard amount, it's a percentage, because that way it's even across the board, that if you only have $100 that you're making, then it's only $10. But if you're making $1 million, then it's $100,000. So it's really across the board, and it's equal for everybody when it's a percentage. And I think God set it up that way so that nobody could feel superior to others with the amount that they give. And of course, that's the tithe, and anything above the tithe is offering, which should be done in a different mindset. So that's what Galatians 6:7 talks about, sowing and reaping. I also want to bring your attention to 2 Corinthians 9:6. But this I say, he who sows sparingly will also reap sparingly, and he who sows bountifully will also reap bountifully. And before I go into that one, I also want to put out there Malachi 3:10, because this is one of my favorites. Bring all the tithes into the storehouse, that there may be food in my house. And test me in this, says the Lord of hosts, if I will not open up for you the windows of heaven and pour out for you such blessings that there will be not enough room to contain it. So obviously, it shows in the Bible that there is the promise that when we give, God wants to use it to give back to us. Just like the farmer when he plants the corn seeds. You have to take from your harvest, from last year's harvest, and you have to plant some of the corn as a seed into the ground, the good fertile soil. And then the rain comes, and it takes a little bit of time, but then it brings forth a whole new crop of corn. And so you do the same thing. You bring it all in, and if you eat all the corn, then there's nothing to plant. And of course, if you plant all the corn, there's nothing to eat too. So there's a balance. You have to have a balance of the planting and the eating. But that's the principle of seed time and harvest in farming. The same thing applies with money. That, with every paycheck, every income you have, there is a set amount that, obviously, the tithe, the 10% that we give to God. And then I remember hearing it told once that when we give the 10%, God honors the 90% that we have left over. And so and I really believe that using all the scriptures I just gave, that is one of the things that I don't feel like people realize with our offerings to God, is that they're blessed. It's not just about giving money. It's about when we give money, God can give back to us, and he can sow back into our lives. And I wanted to give a really nice, really cool not first world. Well, I guess it is a first world practical explanation. But this is something that I was thinking about this morning. I don't know if you know of the YouTuber Mr. Beast. He's very, very popular on YouTube. He gets like 20 million views per episode, and he puts them out I don't know how often he puts them up. It's at least once a week, if not once a day. And his biggest thing is that he just throws money everywhere. He on super frivolous things. The episode I watched today was that he bought 100 million Orbeez, which are little rubber balls that grow with water. He bought 100 million of those and filled up his friend's pool, an entire backyard with them, just to harass his friend. And it was funny. And I realized, I was holy cow, how much money does it cost to get that many Orbeez? And then I looked at some of his other videos, he's got I bought $1 million worth of food, or I bought blah, 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 blah. I spent this money. And his big joke in the videos too is that I'll give $1,000 to whoever can race to the car first or whatever. It's just he just throws his money away. And I was looking into him. I was what gives him the amount of money that he has? I was thinking maybe he's rich. Maybe, obviously he's rich, but maybe he came from a rich family. Maybe he's the heir to something. And I looked it up, and apparently how it started is he started out as a YouTuber back in 2012. And for the first 2 years, he was just doing Minecraft. He was just grinding away on Minecraft, just blah, 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 just doing that kind of thing, just like everyone else was doing in 2012. And then he got a sponsorship from this one company. I can't remember what company it was. And it was $10,000 for the partnership that they had for a brand endorsement. And what he did with that $10,000 is he made a video of him going up and giving it to a homeless guy. He just gave the whole thing to a homeless guy, and he made a video about it. And again, I don't know if he's Christian. I don't know if he was doing it for tithe and harvest or whatever not. But that's what he did with it. He gave the entire thing to a homeless guy. Well, and that's kind of what was the floodgate that opened up for everything else, because he then received all these other endorsements from companies who wanted to get in on it, that they wanted to have their name tied to that kind of thing. So he just had this influx of brands contacting him. I mean, he also had ad revenue too, but that came later. But it's just very interesting. And the more he got, the more he gave. He would find Twitch streamers online, and he just would give exorbitant amounts of money, more than he used to making. I remember in my scrolling to find more videos by him, he gave Ninja, who's a Fortnite YouTuber, he gave him $50,000 on Twitch. And I didn't watch that video, so I didn't know how it all went down, but I mean, that's just the kind of thing he does. He just gives money away to people just because he's generous. He just has a generous spirit about him. And I was trying to, it made sense to me at that point that the laws of seed time and harvest were at effect in his life, and that the more he gave, the more he received. And so I think that it's really astounding to think that such a practical example is the result of giving and receiving. And again, it goes to say you shouldn't just give your money out to random people. You have to be led by the Lord. And again, I don't know his spiritual mindset. I don't know if he's a Christian or whatnot, but I do know that God leads us in our giving, and it's one of those things that God honors. He always honors especially when we give to the poor, when we give to people that are in need. So I talked about money, but that's not the only thing I wanted to talk about for seed time and harvest and giving and receiving. Because, like I said, going back to Galatians, whatever a man sows, that he will also reap. And I have learned through my walk with Jesus that that applies to everything. That's not just money. That literally anything. And I think that applies to time. That is friendship. It even says in the Bible, if you show yourself friendly, you'll have friends. That applies to if you sow a car. I believe that you will receive. That's my computer. I need to turn off that sound. Anyway, so anything that you sow, God will in turn restore and bless in your life. And so I had a really great example in my life of something that I'm sowing and expecting a harvest out of, and that is my voice for this podcast and in expectation of a great voice acting career. When I started out doing this podcast, it really was me just goofing off. I wasn't even really, I was doing it, but I was just kind of having fun with it. And I definitely did not expect it to turn into what it has turned into so far. And that's only, we're only 10 episodes in, and that's saying something that, it's already gotten bigger than I was expecting it to. When I first went into it, I was thinking that, we're going to talk about voice acting and all this. And I remember specifically saying, we're not here to talk about the Bible and stuff. I might mention that, but that's not what this is about. Well, joke's on me. That's what this podcast has turned into. It's turned into a way for me to sow the word of the Lord into you guys, everyone listening, because that's where the Lord has directed me with this. But I really do feel that this is a tithe of my time and my talents into the kingdom, that I'm giving of myself to the Lord. And I know that God's going to, in turn, honor that in a huge way with my career. So that's something I'm expecting. It's something I'm looking forward to. What are some things that you think that you are able to give to the Lord? It doesn't have to be something as big as money. You should give money. You should honor the tithe, because that's how you get increase in your life. But it can really be anything that you want to have an offering to the Lord. It could be time that you want to spend with Him, time out of your day that you just spend time with the Lord in the Word and praying and praising His name. And I've found in my personal life too that really changes the outlook of not just my whole day, but just even the times that I'm facing. Like sometimes I'll be really upset, going through a hard time, and I'll just turn to the Lord, and He just blesses me with His presence, and it really turns my day around when I do that. I think kindness is another thing that is very easy to sow, but has such a great reward that, it's so easy for you to just give kindness, special kindness, not just being civil with people, but special kindness to people who need it, and reaching out to people that need a blessing, and just sowing into their lives with your time and your energy, and just whatever you feel you should do to help them. And God will honor that. He loves it when we show that kind of that love, because God is love, and in essence, kindness is loving your neighbor. So I think I think I've talked about enough of that today. Let's get to our confessions. I think that any way that we can honor the Lord is a great way, and I think too, our positive confessions is a great way we not only honor the Lord, but also get ourselves excited and build up our own faith. If you're just joining me, if this is your first time listening to Behind the Mic with Micah Popp, positive confessions is something here that we do every day, that basically going off the principle of you have whatever you say, and the words you speak, and the power of life and death is in your tongue, is a very powerful biblical principle that we use. And so what we do every day is that we take our words in our mouth, and we say positive things over our lives so that we can bring forth just the positive outcome. We build up our faith for what is to come. And so I have my little book here, and maybe you have your book, so go ahead and grab your books now, and pause the video real quick and say your yesterday's confession. We're going to say yesterday's confession first, whatever it was. And if you want to go head through your whole book and just say every previous day's confession, that is amazing to do. I do that as much as I can as well. But for time's sake, we're just going to do yesterday's and today's. So yesterday's was, I will be strong, and I will persevere in the face of adversity, for my strength is not weak, for my strength is strong with the Lord. So I think that's a really great one. That applies to, really, that's one of those things that applies to every day. We all need strength. We all need to persevere. And if you remember yesterday's message, it was all about perseverance and how I almost gave up on doing the podcast because I felt like I was running out of subjects. Well, I'm thankful I didn't. And shout out to my friend Colton. He's listening right now. And he was really encouraging to me last night. He messaged me. He told me that he was blessed by these podcasts. So thank you, Colton. You really have, you've encouraged me to keep going with these. So for today's confession, maybe you want to make this for you. This confession is more specifically tailored. It is for me, but I think that it kind of shows that it is important to. Well, I'll read it and then I'll talk about it. I am fully employed as a voice actor, and my agent is the best around. They get me the highest paying jobs. So, obviously, that's very tailored to what I'm looking for. My positive confession that the Lord is bringing me into a great acting place with voice acting. So maybe that applies to you. Maybe you're listening to me because you also want to be a voice actor, or maybe you want to be an artist, or you want to be a regular actor. Whatever it is you're asking the Lord for, confess it over yourself today and stay strong with that profession of faith. So anyways, that'll wrap us up for today. Thank you again so much for listening. I love you guys. Stay strong, stay positive. I will talk to you guys tomorrow. Bye!